Hi everybody, Lisa here from Cool Kids Hub. Today I want to talk about an 8-month-old sleep schedule. How much sleep does an 8-month-old need? What are some sleep tips to help create healthy sleep habits in your little one? Whether or not you can sleep train an 8-month-old, and what are some of the sleep problems that you might be experiencing with your little one at this age? Now, an 8-month-old sleep schedule is very similar to that of a 7-month-old. And whilst no two babies are the same, there is an overall amount of sleep that an 8-month-old needs that is similar across all 8-month-olds. Now, of course, your little one is experiencing those longer wake windows, but they do still need sufficient sleep because if they become cranky and overtired, it's really a struggle to get them to sleep, which I'm sure you've already experienced. So, first of all, how much sleep does an 8-month-old need? Well, an 8-month-old needs between 12 to 16 hours of sleep within a 24-hour period. Now, at this stage, most 8-month-olds are napping for 2 naps, and so that daytime sleep is generally 2 to 4 hours. There are some babies that still require 3 naps, and that's perfectly normal. But you will potentially find they start to drop that third nap. If your little one's still having a third nap, over the next month, they'll probably start to drop that third nap. Now, I will put a link to a video on nap transitions as well as an article you can read on how to transition your little one if they are ready to drop a nap, because that does happen in this time if they haven't already dropped that third nap. Now, their awake windows generally now can be between sort of 2.5 and 3.5 hours, and you will find that your baby is very interactive and may not always want to sleep because they're having way too much fun playing and being up with you. But be consistent with those awake windows and look out for those tired signs so that your little one doesn't get overtired. Now, what are some of the sleep tips to really start to carry on instilling those healthy sleep habits in your little one? Well, the first one is to continue with your bedtime routine. If you don't have a bedtime routine, now is the time to get that in place if you haven't already. And I will put a link to a free bedtime routine in the description of this video. But really, you want that bedtime routine sends sleep signals to your little one that now is time to sleep. It's time for them to unwind and start to relax before they go to sleep. It's time for you to cuddle with them, read a book, sing a lullaby together. It's really that calming and unwinding, and that predictability of having a routine starts to send those sleep signals to your little one that now it is time for me to go to sleep. So, tip 2 is to make sure that your baby gets enough overall sleep. They still require, like I said, between 12 and 16 hours of sleep, and your 8-month-old is capable at this stage, developmentally able to go through the night without requiring a feed. However, some babies may still be waking up for those feeds, but you want to make sure that they're getting 12 to 16 hours within a 24-hour period. Now, when they start to drop naps, you might need to be flexible because some days you might find your little one naps twice, and other days they nap. You need to get them down for a third nap because otherwise the awake window is too long. Or there might be days where you just need to bring their bedtime forward slightly so that those awake windows are not too long, especially in that transition phase. So just be a little bit flexible, but make sure you're getting that overall sleep that your little one needs. Now, on the flip side, you don't want to let them have too much sleep. Now, I know that you're going to think, goodness, you just said make sure they get enough. Now, make sure they don't sleep too much. And it can feel like you're constantly juggling between too much sleep and not enough sleep. And let's face it, with babies, there's a lot of juggling going on. But you do want to make sure they don't get too much sleep in the day, because then they'll obviously not sleep at night. But you don't want to keep them awake during the day thinking they'll sleep longer, because that will just make them overtired. Let them get those 2 to 4 hours. But if you have a baby that's a really good sleep and just wants to keep sleeping in the day, provided they've had those 2 to 4 hours, you might want to think of waking them up from those naps, and then obviously keeping those awake windows to 2.5 to 3.5 hours, but so then they will sleep better at night because they've had enough day sleeps and they haven't lost out on that day sleep, but they are tired enough that they will go to sleep and sleep through the night in the evenings. And then the last tip is make sure you're prioritizing naps. Now, when I say this, try to put your baby down for sleep in the same place for every sleep, whether that be nap time or bedtime. Now, this is not always possible. If you've got other children, busy families, it's fine to have some naps on the go, in the car, in a pram, but try where possible to get your little one to sleep in the same place. It just creates that consistency for your little one, and again, sends the sleep signals that now is the time to sleep. Now, what does a sleep schedule look like? I'll put a link in the description of this video to a sleep schedule. That sleep schedule is based on having your baby having 2 naps and that kind of 2 to 4 hours of daytime sleep. Now, remember, with your little one now, because they're also on solids, you will find that, you probably got them on 3 solid meals, of sort of a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, at least, with obviously the bottle and breastfeeds in between. Also, when you are feeding your little one solids, what you might find, especially if you're just transitioning, is that they do better if you give them sort of half a bottle or half their breast milk that would normally have, then give them their solids and then give them the other half. Some babies like to take all of their bottle or breastfeed up front, but what often happens is they can fill themselves up and then not necessarily take their solids. So you also don't want them to be so hungry that they start to, when you introduce those solids, start to gag because they're just so hungry they can't get the food quickly enough, or they start to fuss. If you've got, you will just have to see, because every baby's different. My son worked very well if I gave him half of his sort of milk up front, then gave him his solids, and then the other half. So just bear that in mind. Now, the one question that some parents ask is, particularly if their baby is not yet sleeping through the night, is, can I sleep train an 8-month-old? Now, it's important to remember that sleep training is a personal choice, and I don't like to think of it as sleep training because it often makes parents go, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that to my baby. This is about creating healthy sleep habits. At 8-month-old, your baby is developmentally able to go through the night without requiring a feed. And if your little one is still waking up, especially if they're waking up multiple times, it is going to be more out of habit than it is out of actually needing to feed. It's because they are looking for you. So if you currently still feed them to sleep or rock them to sleep or shush them to sleep, when they wake up in the night, they don't know how to get back to sleep. So they're looking for you to do that same thing. Or they might just be enjoying those little cuddles and that little, midnight snack. So you can obviously now start to night wean your little one by reducing the number of ounces that you give them, or the number of time that you allow them to feed on the breast at each feed, and we sort of reduce that in the night till eventually those feeds are kind of disappeared. And then when your baby wakes, you're not going to offer those feeds. You're going to try other methods to get them back to sleep. Again, I'll put a link in the description of this video to a video that I did on night weaning and how you can actually night wean your baby. But if your baby is still waking up, then it might be the time to consider sleep training them. And remember, sleep training does not have to involve a lot of crying. There are a number of sleep training methods that you can use. They go from very gentle to cry it out. So pick the one that's right for you and your little one. But remember, the longer you leave it before sort of sleep training or instilling those healthy sleep habits in your little one, the tougher it's going to be, because the more used to getting up in the middle of the night they are going to be. Now, what are some of the maybe sleep problems that you're starting to face at the 8-month mark? Well, a big one is sitting up or standing up within the cot. This age, your baby's often pulling themselves up and getting up into a standing or sitting position, but often they don't know how to get back down, especially from standing. So what often happens is this can disrupt their sleep. Now, it is kind of a bit of a balancing, one of those juggling things again, because you don't want to create a game, because what often happens is, they stand up and then, the mom goes in or dad goes in and goes, starts to interact with the little one, little bit of a joke, come lie down, puts them down, and then the little one, oh, this is fun, I'm going to keep doing that, and they do it again. So if you see them standing or sitting, give them a few minutes first and see if they manage to figure it out on their own. If you do need to go in, try to more show them how to get back down on their own, as opposed to just, but obviously you're going to have to help them and to lay them down, but don't make this into a game. And then make sure that when they are awake during the day, you're practicing that. So, letting them stand, showing them how to sit back down, or from sitting, how to lie back down. So practice that during the day so that, it doesn't become so disruptive, because that is a big one that often disrupts sleep around this age. The other thing is, and I touched on this earlier, is that your little one can't self-soothe. So when they wake up in the night, they're looking for you to get them back to sleep via whatever method you help them go to sleep in the first place, if that was feeding or rocking or shushing. So, that is where you need to consider that sleep training. So you're not having to do that. They're actually learning to fall asleep independently. You can start doing this by putting them down when they're drowsy. So if you do currently feed them to sleep, feed them, but don't let them go to sleep. Keep them awake. And as they're a little bit drowsy because they're really tired, then put them down. And slowly they'll get used to that falling asleep on their own. Some babies kind of start to develop some kind of separation anxiety between sort of 6 and 10 months. So that could also disturb sleep, where they just cry a lot. Again, be consistent, go inshore, comfort them. Don't have a lot of interaction, and then just, reiterate that it's time for sleeping. The other thing that can disturb sleep is teething. I mean, obviously your little one starts teething around that 5-month mark. It can still be bothering them. Teethings are a great way to sort of help that. Also, if you're really seeing that your little one is really struggling, because some babies sail through teething, no problems. You don't even know they're even teething. Except when you see the little teeth sprouting, whereas other ones really, really struggle. Gums are very sore. So if you've got a little one that you suspect the reason that they're struggling to sleep is because their gums are really sore, talk to your pediatrician about other pain relief that you can use if the teething rings aren't doing the job. The other thing is, like I said, some babies just wake up to feed because they've got in this habit of little midnight snacks and they just want to wake to feed. So this is when you want to consider that night weaning. Like I said, reduce the ounces that you're giving your baby if you're feeding them by bottle, or reduce the amount of time that you're feeding them on each breast, and do that gradually. So, you reduce it. Let's say you're breastfeeding, you might reduce the time that you're feeding them by 2 minutes. Do that for a few nights, then reduce by another 2 until really you're not feeding them at all. And what you often find is the babies then almost naturally wean themselves and stop waking up for those feeds, because they get in so little anyway that they kind of realize that it's pointless. And then the other thing can be temporary disruptions. So this might be things like, an illness, starting daycare, any, moving home, traveling, anything that can kind of, out of the ordinary for your little one can cause some sleep disruptions. But generally these pass because they're temporary, so they generally pass pretty quickly. Now, another thing that parents often ask, because you'll hear this a lot, is there an 8-month-old sleep regression? There's a lot of talk that, oh my goodness, every month my baby seems to go through a sleep regression. If you've watched any of my other videos, you would know that I say there is only one true sleep regression, and that happens at the 4-month mark. And the reason I say that is that in the 4-month mark, that there is a physical change in your baby's sleep. Their sleep goes from being that of a baby to mimic more that of an adult. So their physical sleep cycle, sleep stages change. It is an actual physical development, and that does cause sleep regression. And so you'll often hear people talk about the dreaded 4-month sleep regression. There are going to be times past the 4-month mark, particularly in that first year, where your baby's sleep is and can be disrupted. Few things that I just spoke about, teething, maybe an illness, a new developmental milestone like rolling over or sitting up or standing. These do disrupt sleep, but they are not a sleep regression in the true sense of the word. The only true sleep regression is at that 4-month mark. Any other time, yes, there's a disruption to their sleep, but they are temporary, and just like the 4-month sleep regression, they do pass. But at the 4-month mark is when there's a physical change to their sleep. In all these others, it's sort of developmental milestones that are causing these disruptions to sleep. And that really is the sleep for an 8-month-old. Like I said, as with every month that you've had and every month that you're going to have, it's important to be keeping to those awake windows, looking for those signs of tiredness so your little one does not get overtired and cranky, and really just continuing to instill those healthy sleep habits in your little one. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks. Bye for now.